Resuming debate, the honourable member for Sturgeon River Parkland.
Well done.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and we get back to our regularly scheduled programming. Madam Speaker, after 9 years, the NDP Liberals are not worth the crime or the chaos that they've unleashed on Canada's streets. Now, this study on gun and gang violence was conducted back in 2022, 2 years ago, and rereading our common sense conservative recommendations and conclusions that were made at that committee and in that report, everything that we said at the time has come to pass. Liberal policies have done nothing to stop gun crime in this country. The legacy of this Liberal government will be a weak justice system, the absence of good enforcement, and a border that is leaking smuggled guns and stolen cars like never before. In fact, violent gun crime under this government has increased by over 100% since this Prime Minister took office. Now, the Prime Minister has been saying that he's going to be banning the firearms of law-abiding Canadians, while completely ignoring the crime wave that his government has unleashed with their soft-on-crime policies. After 9 years, committing a crime and getting away with it has never been easier. Professional, organized criminals are taking note, and they're taking full advantage of this government's soft-on-crime policies. Canada has become a massive exporter of stolen cars and a net importer of illegal firearms. Under this Liberal government, Canada's stolen vehicles, at one time in 2022, there was a vehicle being stolen every 5 minutes in Canada. And we know what these stolen vehicles are being used for. They're being used to fund organized crime. They're being used to fund international terrorism, and they're being used to finance the purchase of drugs and guns, which are wreaking havoc on our streets. Now, these sophisticated industrial-level organized criminals are targeting Canada precisely because of the soft-on-crime policies of this government. Auto theft is not a victimless crime, as some have said. It is a crime that costs every Canadian because our insurance premiums go up, and as we're increasingly seeing these desperate criminals who are carjacking people in broad daylight. In fact, in some cases, vehicles are being stolen with children sitting in the back seat. It's an absolute disgrace. And why does it only take $1 billion in insured losses in our auto theft sector for this government to finally start taking action? Now, Conservatives have been consistent in calling out this Liberal government's abysmal record. In fact, back in 2022 at the Public Safety Committee, we had the Chief of Toronto Police at the time coming to testify about this government's gun buyback programs. Now, I asked the Chief of Police, I quote, if the government's policy was that they wanted to buy hard drugs off the streets, so a drug buyback, as a means to reduce the proliferation of hard drugs on our street, would that be an effective tool at getting drugs off the street? And this is what Chief Demkew said, I do not believe it would be an effective tool. To which I responded, I said, well, then why would it be effective for firearm policies? His response, quote, I would not suggest that it was effective for gun policy. The City of Toronto's experience is that guns that are being used in crime are not from law-abiding citizens. They're guns being smuggled in from the United States. Those engaged in handling those firearms are not law-abiding licensed gun owners. They are criminals with no firearms license. That's coming from the Toronto Chief of Police. The Liberals have now squandered $70 million, and they're promising to spend over $1 billion more on this gun confiscation program. And they have yet to seize a single firearm. Conservatives, experts, frontline police officers have all said that this is a flawed approach to crime on our streets. Now let's talk about this border under these Liberals. Conservatives have repeatedly said that this gun confiscation regime was useless. Taxpayer money needs to be spent on the technology and the manpower to secure our borders. The brave men and women of the CBSA have not been given the proper support by this government. And at Public Safety in 2022, the CBSA union said, quote, not only is Canada's ability to prevent smuggling lacking, but its capacity to gather reliable and sound data is also inadequate. That's after 9 years of this Liberal government. They can come here and talk about what the Conservatives did, but they've had 9 years to take action, and this is what the CBSA union is saying today. Moreover, they said there is a 0% chance that any illegal weapon entering the country via rail will ever be found. So there is a huge gap at our border. Canadians have lost faith, as we saw with numerous alleged cases of terrorists crossing our borders in this past year alone. We've seen ISIS-inspired terrorists evade our borders. And United States border stats have shown that in 2023, there were 484 matches on the U.S. terrorist watch list at land ports of entry along the Canada-US border. Since 2017, these numbers have gone up by 123%. How many more of these terrorists are being allowed to cross the border from Canada into the United States? Why is Canada not taking action to protect our border and to assure our ally that we're taking the necessary actions needed, not only to protect Canadians, but to protect our allies? Now, with crime and chaos skyrocketing, police unions have come out publicly. I've never seen it. It's quite unprecedented. They've taken the unprecedented step of calling out this government's failed record. I'm just going to quote some of these police experts. We have the chief of Peel, who said 90% of firearms that we seize are directly traced back to the United States, and the remaining 10% are also likely from the U.S. He also said the availability of firearms has just saturated the community. The Surrey Police Union is saying the federal handgun freeze fails to address the real issue, the surge of illegal firearms coming across our border. The Toronto Police Association says, what difference does their handgun ban make when 85% of the guns seized by our members are sourced to the United States? Peel Police are seizing an illegal gun every 30 hours, an 87% increase over the year prior. Now, I think people can maybe say that they like this government's intent, but if we're judging them by the outcome of this policy, it has been an abysmal failure. In fact, back in 2022, when we had the previous Minister of Public Safety come to committee, he was more concerned about Canadians going to the RCMP and the Canadian Firearms Program and getting their firearms license than he was about stopping organized criminals from smuggling guns over our border and committing crimes in Canada. That just shows you what the priorities of this Liberal government have been after these last 9 years. They prefer to go after law-abiding hunters and sport shooters and Indigenous hunters, rather than going after the real criminals who they're giving softer bail sentences to. They're cutting minimum sentences. They are not doing anything to stop the flow of illegal guns over our border and of stolen vehicles leaving our country. This Prime Minister's radical catch-and-release policies are allowing violent repeat offenders to avoid jail. And since this government passed C-75 and C-5, which gave a high priority to releasing repeat violent offenders, it took away mandatory jail time for certain violent crimes, and a crime wave has been unleashed across this country as a result. In 2022, data shows that 30% of those people who were murdered in Canada were killed by somebody who was out on bail. It's shocking. The outcome of these Liberal policies, regardless of what you think about their intent, the outcome of these policies has been an abject failure. Experts at committee have also said that 68% of car thieves in Ontario spend less than 6 months in jail. These are the ideal conditions for organized criminals who are carrying out violent crime on our streets, and our communities are now low risk for criminals, but a high reward. Now, in conclusion, Madam Speaker, in 2015, our country was far safer than it is now. Now we have become a huge exporter of stolen vehicles. We've become an importer of, we've also become an exporter of fentanyl. Canada has now become the top exporter of fentanyl to the country of Australia. It's absolutely shameful. Canada is becoming a playground for organized crime, and they are using our country's lax laws to commit mayhem across the world. Crime, death, and destruction across the world. This wasn't the case before this Prime Minister came into power, and this won't be the case after this Conservative government gets into power. We're going to axe the tax, we're going to fight the crime, we're going to get rid of the corruption, and we're going to make our streets safe. And with that, Madam Speaker, I'd like to move a motion that the motion be amended by deleting all the words after the word that and substituting the following, quote, the third report of the Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security presented on Monday, April 25th, 2022, be not now concurred in, but that it be recommitted to the committee for further consideration, with a view to studying the rates of violent crime which have remained unacceptably high in the 31 months since this report was originally tabled, and updating the recommendations with proposals to stop the crimes which are creating far too many preventable tragedies, provided that, for the purposes of this study, A, the following be ordered to appear as witnesses for at least 2 hours each, at dates and times to be fixed by the chair of the committee, but no later than Tuesday, December 17th, 2024. 1. The Minister of Public Safety, Democratic Institutions and Intergovernmental Affairs. 2. The Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada. And B. It be an instruction that the committee hold at least 4 other meetings to receive evidence from law enforcement, victims' representatives, stakeholders, and experts proposed by the members of the committee. 2. Invite representatives of the following organizations. A. The Toronto Police Union. B. The Surrey Police Union. C. La Fédération de policiers et policières municipaux de Québec. and D, the Canadian Association of Elizabeth Fry Societies, and E, the John Howard Society of Canada, and 3, report its findings to the House by Friday, February 28th, 2025. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Hear, hear.
Mr. Lloyd, seconded by Mr. Couric, moves the following amendment, that the motion be amended by deleting all the words after the word "that" and substituting the following: the third report of the Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security, presented on Monday, April 25th, 2022, be not now concurred in, but that it be recommitted to the committee for further consideration with a view to studying the rates of violent crime which have remained unacceptably high in the 31 months since this report was originally tabled, and updating the recommendations with proposals to stop the crimes which are creating far too many preventable tragedies, provided that, for the purpose of this study, A, the following be ordered to appear as witnesses for at least 2 hours each at dates and times to be fixed by the chair of the committee, but no later than Tuesday, December 17, 2024. 1, the Minister of Public Safety, Democratic Institution and Intergovernmental Affairs. 2, the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada. And B, it be an instruction that the committee, 1, hold at least 4 other meetings to receive evidence from the law enforcement victims, representatives, stakeholders, and experts proposed by the members of the committee. 2, invite representatives of the following organizations: A, the Toronto Police Association; B, the Surrey Police Union; C, la Fédération des policiers et policières municipaux du Québec; D, the Canadian Association of Elizabeth Fry Societies; and E, the John Howard Society of Canada; and 3, report its findings to the House by Friday, February 28, 2025. The amendment is in order. Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires? The Honourable Deputy Government House Leader.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. You know, I am fully aware of the insanely busy agenda going on right now at SECU, and I'm also fully aware of the games that Conservatives are currently playing there. In particular, they've been filibustering and introducing motions to prevent one thing. That one thing they're trying to prevent is the study on foreign interference by India and Russia. Oh. What this member is doing now by introducing this in this House is he is trying to get an order from this House to direct the committee to do even more work so that they can further prevent that study from occurring. Can the member please stand up and explain why the Conservatives do not want to have the study on foreign interference conducted?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Sturgeon River Parkland.
Well, Madam Speaker, I think it's quite telling that we have a Liberal member over there who's unhappy that Conservatives want to do more work, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to talk about the issues that are important to Canadians, and all those issues that he cited are important issues to Canadian. And what I would say is that if this Liberal government were setting out to implement a series of justice and public safety policies that were designed to increase the rate of death and murders on our streets, that were designed to increase the amount of violent criminals, the amount of stolen cars, the amount of smuggled firearms, if that was their intent, they're doing an excellent job, Madam Speaker. They've done an excellent job of increasing crime, making our country less safe, and it's going to take a Conservative government to fight the crime in this country, to bring back common sense, public safety and justice policies that will ensure that violent repeat offenders stay behind bars, so that Canadian streets, Canadian children, Canadian vehicles, Canadians can be safe to walk our streets again. It wasn't that long ago that Canadians felt safe in this country, but after 9 years of this Liberal government, that's changed, Madam Speaker, and it's a tragic thing. Thank you.
Honourable Deputy Shefford.
The Honourable Member for Shefford. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague for that comment. He talked about stolen cars, and that's problematic. And what else is problematic is the question of how to use technology so that we can detect more easily what's in containers. So how can we make better use of technology when it comes to auto theft? A number of associations I've met with have made suggestions, and I wonder what the member has to say about that.
For Sturgeon River Parkland.
I want to thank the member for bringing up that question. And technology is absolutely going to be essential in the fight against not only smuggled guns, but stolen vehicles. But we also can't, and I would just say, we can't view technology as the crutch and the entire solution. When you have a policy that lets violent repeat offenders or repeat car thieves back out on the street in months, humans are very capable. They're capable of adapting to situations. And I worry that whenever we do bring in a new technology, there's a very smart criminal out there trying to find a way around the technology. So yes, we do need to implement new technologies, but we also need to do the very basic things, which is to keep these violent repeat offenders, these repeat car thieves, behind bars. We need to get people out of a life of crime, especially children who are very vulnerable to being recruited in crime. We need to keep them out of a life of crime so that we need less criminals. And then we won't need the technology as much. But it's absolutely essential that we do get the technological approach, but we need to have a strong criminal justice approach, and that's what a common sense conservative government promises to do. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Questions and comments? The honourable for Skeena-Balclay Valley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and to my colleague from Sturgeon River Parkland. Recommendation 20 in this report that the Government of Canada allocate additional human and financial resources to the Canada Border Services Agency to enable them to better investigate and apprehend those attempting to smuggle illegal firearms into Canada. The Harper government cut 1,100 CBSA officers. Shame. And our southern border is of considerable importance right now, particularly in the context of the incoming Trump administration. The NDP has called for the reinstatement and the hiring of those 1,100 border officers that Canada so greatly needs. Will the Conservatives and will this member stand with us and call on the government to hire back those important workers?
Hear, hear.
A brief answer from the honourable member Sturgeon River Parkland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I would just ask the members to look at the public accounts from back then. Conservatives were investing in our border. We were supporting our border agencies and giving them the technologies and the support that they needed. But I think it's also somewhat of a simplistic solution to say we need to hire more people. Of course, if there are people who are ready and willing to do the job, then we need to give them an opportunity to do the job. But we are facing a recruitment and retention crisis across this country in the military, in the RCMP, and at CBSA. And we don't need simplistic slogans of, we're just going to hire 2,000 more people to fill a job. We need actual solutions that are going to result in better recruitment and more retention. And we also need force multipliers to give those people that are continuing to work all the tools that they need to complete the job so that they can do the job of 2, 3, or what 4 people did previously. That's the solutions we need, as well as hiring new people. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
So I just want to remind members that if they're not being recognized, to please not shout out their questions or comments. It's very difficult to hear what members are saying, even if they're right beside me.